Hey everybody, Chef Kurt back. How are we all doing today? Happy fall. And being from the Midwest, I really miss some great fall dishes. Me being part Irish, part German, I miss some of the great home style foods from those cultures as well. But being fall and German, today we're going to go ahead and make a great pork schnitzel with some sliced pork loin here. We're going to pound that out, just a little simple breading, flour, egg wash mixture there. And the spatzle is a great dish. A brilliant side dish for pork schnitzel. We're going to show you how to make this out of this little cheese grater, right? It's a perfect tool to make spatzle, and we're going to make this today. Ready to make the spatzle. As I said, it's a very simple recipe: flour, eggs, milk, and a little bit of salt. So a great recipe that I found out that works pretty well is 4 eggs. We've got 3 eggs in here now. Your 4th egg, and so when you make the eggs, really whisk them up really well. You want to get all the albumin from the egg white and all the yolks mixed together in a little frothy mixture. That's going to help give this dough, your spatzle dough, a little airiness and texture as well. So some people will go ahead and use a mixer on this and a dough hook, because you really want to whip it and make it airy and doughy a little bit. So we have the 4 eggs. I have about 2/3 cup of milk. I'm going to hold back just a little bit, and then I'm going to continue to mix this. I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of salt, a little heaping tablespoon of salt. Give that a little mix. You can see how frothy that is. These nice little air bubbles. So we're done with the whisk. The rest of this recipe, we're going to use a wooden spoon, and that's going to create, it's going to imitate the dough hook process to mix this up. So the recipe I have is just a good level full of flour, 2 cups of flour. Pretty balanced right there. You take the end of this spoon and just continuously start to mix it. You're going to keep this dough really kind of like a wet muffin batter, right? And the reason why you have that extra milk is you want this to be created with a little eye consistency and texture. So that's too thick, so you're definitely going to add more. And it seems like I just made this a little bit ago with this exact recipe. It looks like I'm going to have to add a little bit extra water to it. So recipes like this, even though you follow the exact same one every time, sometimes you have to adjust. And so I added a little bit more water to it. You're going to see how this is scooping in, scraping the sides of the flour into there. And it's absorbed that water already. But you can still see the texture isn't quite smooth yet. So you really want to give this a really good whip. Like I said, the dough hook is great for this, because it really creates a little smoother consistency. And it whips it around, kneading the dough, kind of exercising that gluten inside of it. You can see the consistency is already getting nice and smooth, kind of like a nice little pancake batter or a thick, chewy, melted cheese. And so you don't see any air bubbles. We're going to start looking for some air bubbles pretty soon. And once you see that, I'm going to beat this really good for at least 3 or 4 minutes. And you'll see the consistency and the smoothness begin to create. Now you start seeing some little air bubble pockets, okay, as you make this, and that's kind of what you're starting to look for. See a little bubble right there? You're going to get some of those, and that's when your consistency and texture of this is just where you want it. We're going to let this rest for about 5 minutes, and we're going to show you how to make the pork schnitzel with a very simple breading of egg, flour, breadcrumb. We're getting ready to prepare the pork schnitzel, and so I showed earlier we have the sliced pork loin. You can use pork tenderloin as a darker meat and slice them. You can use chicken breast, chicken thighs. Not a lot of beef dishes with this meal, but pork, chicken. You can do a fish piccata, fish schnitzel, but traditionally pork is done, and so you can see the thickness of this. and how much I've already pounded out this one here and how much bigger it gets. So you got a nice little fillet here. A little trick is we have these 1 gallon Ziploc bags. You can cut it in half there, and it kind of gives a nice little sturdiness to keep things nice and clean. So you're going to pound it, and I'm going in a circular motion, not trying to do one side more than the other, but try to spread out the meat and the tendons equally. Straighten it out a little bit so you can see how thin it is. Again, you don't want to shred it so thin and get it where it starts to tear. You still want to have probably a 1/4 inch or so of meat in there. That looks good. So we have our nice pounded out piece of pork. See, it makes a little small piece of meat look so much bigger. And so we have some seasoned flour here, salt, pepper, a little garlic powder, onion powder. We're going to bread this in a traditional way of flour, egg wash, and seasoned breadcrumbs. And so you don't want a heavy coating, just a nice little coating on all sides. Dip it into your eggs. Keep one hand dry, keep one hand wet. So as this one takes the mixture out of the eggs, it stays wet. You put it into the seasoned breadcrumbs, keeping this one dry, kind of giving it a nice little coating all around. Pack it in a little bit so it kind of seals those juices when they fry. And that's that one. And again, so for the purpose of keeping one hand wet, one hand dry, I can take the second one here, dip it into the flour. Again, keep that dry. If you're not using gloves, this technique really comes in handy so you don't clump up all that gook on your fingers and then your fingernails, so it keeps it a little cleaner and neater. So again, we'll dip into the egg wash. And over here for the breading. Get this hand dry. Toss it around. Get a nice little coating of breadcrumbs on all sides. And that is ready for the fryer. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make the spatzle, and then we're going to show you how to fry this up and create this great, brilliant, wonderful German feast. Our spatzle, you can see our dough has rested for a little bit. You can start to see some of the air bubbles that have began to form. That's your perfect consistency. You want this. Nice, smooth, kind of like a loose muffin batter, thick pancake batter. Let's get this started. So a couple different tools that are needed to make spatzle is you need some type of colander, you need boiling water. We got our boiling water going. You need some type of spatzle maker. Some people use different types of colanders. This one is too thin, the holes are too small, you're not going to get a real good chunky size spatzle. This one I tried actually last night. It worked, it was okay, it came out a little funky wampus, but it did work. The one that I found out the best actually is this cheese grater, and there's two different size cheese graters that I've had, and this one is the larger one that I've used to shred cheese. Be careful, this is sharp, so I use this side of it. And here's what I'll do. We have the dough, and so I've learned to use this little scraper, spatula combination tool. Kind of works well. You can scoop out and use the same process in one swoop.
Every tool in the house I have to clean.
So as we take a nice little chunk of this batch of dough, at the same motion, just set it on top, and just start to smush it slightly through the holes of the grater until it starts to go all the way through, and you'll see it just soon disappear. Keep the water boiling at all times on high. And now that batch has been pushed through the strainer. You can take a little scoop on that, wipe that off. And so making spatzle is not a fast process. You need to do it in stages. And so once this little batch here boils for about a minute, it's really ready to go. You want to have an ice bath here ready to go, so when the spatzle, the dough dumplings cook for about a minute, you can shock them. Look at that fluffy tenderness of love And you'll scoop this batch out.
Look at that lovely tenderness of fluffy
That's
dough.
right. And we're just going to repeat the process. Keep your water boiling. Take another batch of the dough. You can get a nice little scoop into there. And again, just repeat the process. Slowly, just mashing it through. And you can see the little droplets, like big fat little teardrops, dumplings of dough falling into the salted water bath, ever so gently getting poached.
And they're tasty.
Again, it's not a fast process. Let that come to a boil. Once they float, they're done. You really don't want to overcook these. You want to keep them nice, tender, and fluffy. And like I said, as soon as they begin to float, probably like a minute, as long as you keep that water boiling, it's a pretty fast process.
Oh, they look good.
Okay.
They look good.
Again, put that in the water, nice water. Again, one more batch here we'll show you. Get a nice little scoop here. One motion. If you get that technique down pat, you don't have to make a big mess in your kitchen. But again, slowly just kind of use your spatula and bend that through the holes. I found this little cheese grater to be the perfect size without spending a bunch of money on another colander or something else. It's very consistent. And you just continuously push your dough through. And the reason why you don't want to make a whole bunch of batches at a time, I could go ahead and do another one, but these cook so quickly. So by the time I do this and get this another batch ready, these are already almost done. And so I want to keep them individually. So another 30 seconds as they come to a boil. These are so good. Butter, salt, yeah, bacon, parsley.
No bacon.
And so we're going to repeat this process until all of these little morsels of spatzle are done.
Yikes! Pepper on that right now.
Okay. Buddy, we are here to put the final stages on our brilliant German meal, pork Schnitzel. It's pounded out, breaded, ready to go. We have a pot of hot oil to fry that in at the same time. A little cast iron skillet with some olive oil in there. We're going to add 2 slabs of butter to that piece. And let that melt for a second. Now to check if this oil is hot enough, we have a little fresh parsley. We're going to fry.
Okay, that's totally going to be edited.
And you can see a nice crisp hot oil on these. You want to fry them up nice and crispy. Turn the heat up on this. A little fried parsley garnish.
That was totally unnecessary.
And so we know the oil is hot enough.
You think?
And so we're going to go ahead and start
I
our
might have to
process
ask the question.
with
Oh, that looks good. Is that onion and bacon?
a little bacon, a little mushroom.
Nice.
Turn this up to saute. As that sautés, we're going to go ahead and start.
No.
Always put that floating away backwards so it doesn't
Splatter.
upon you.
Yeah, you don't want to
I think
splatter.
we can fit about 2 of those babies in there. Let those fry.
How long do they usually take?
They're going to take about 4 to 5 minutes. They're thin. That's why we counted them out thinly.
Okay.
And the hot oil is there. So we have our fried parsley, which is going to come off the side. You can stop. So we have the butter, onion, garlic, bacon sauteing in this cast iron skillet. We're going to go and add in about a cup, 2 cups, 2 good servings of spatzle. We're going to let that pan fry. As you can see, our pork schnitzel here has fried up nice and crispy. We're going to let that out of there. Let that rest. Continue to saute. You get that butter a little bit nutty. Let that caramelize a little bit. You're going to get that bacon, mushroom, onion flavor, kind of like a pierogi, but nice fresh made spatzle. So we have the spatzle, the bacon, caramelizing. You see some of the brownness on some of the little nuggets there. We are ready to dish. Turn it up. Schnitzel. Some fresh parsley on there. And some fried parsley on there. You got yourself full German pork schnitzel, bacon, onion, mushroom spatzle.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.